Hey guys, it's Angie Atkinson here, and today I am here to bring a little light to an issue that I personally wasn't even fully aware of. Recently, a group member came to me and SPAN, my support from people affected by narcissistic abuse in relationships group, and she said, there aren't enough resources out there for people who are in lesbian and gay relationships and being abused by toxic narcissists. And I thought, I don't know if I've ever seen anybody talk about that before. I'm sure it's out there, but of course, I hadn't personally researched it because I'm not a lesbian. But I have friends who are lesbians. I have friends who are gay people, and I think this is a really important issue that needs to get out there. And I should also say I have family members who are friends, who are gay and lesbian. So this is an important issue, and this is something that we need to be talking about, and that not enough people are paying attention to. This population is being underserved, and so today what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you some of the things that Sue has shared with me over the past couple of days, as we started to talk about how we could raise awareness for this stuff. Okay, and this is again all with her permission. Her name is her author name is Sue B. Okay, she is currently someone who has never been a professional writer, but she has so many excellent things to say from her own experiences that I think this is something that it's going to really benefit a lot of people who are not. I'm hoping to help give some people a voice, people who don't have this voice today. All right. So let's go over some of this stuff. Sue has been wonderful as far as, telling me how I've helped her along the way. And she says, that she thinks that I do good work and reach a lot of people. And this is, I think, what moved her to move out to me. And that means the world to me, obviously. But the thing is that, if we could share Sue's story and we could share Sue's experiences and her own research and knowledge on this stuff, we could really do a lot of good in the world. So like I said, I'm going to share some of this stuff with you, and we're just going to we're going to find out, how she feels and some of the things that she's learned, right? So she says, she was suicidal and in a psych ward at one point, because no one was there to listen to her, to hear what she had been through, because even people who, were in her life couldn't understand the pain she was dealing with. And she said that what brought her to me was that she started to watch and learn, from the videos on YouTube. And I think, you know, that in itself is evidence as to how incredibly powerful this platform is. And that is why I am here today, and that's why I'm talking about this. And Sue has agreed to come with me and talk with me on a live lab tomorrow, as well as on YouTube videos. And so we're going to work together on this. So that's where I'm at. I am trying to pull this up. I'm going to pause the video for 1 second and fix this because my situation's been, oh, I remember what I did. Okay, here we go. I don't even need to pause the video, or do I? I'm just going to pause it 1 moment. All right, so I'm going to share with you a few of Sue's thoughts here. All right, so she said that, one of the first things she wanted to explain to me was that being in a lesbian relationship is different than a straight relationship. And of course it is. I imagine. I don't know because unfortunately, I haven't been in one, but she said, I'm going to tell you what that looks like. And she said, there are lesbians out there right from the beginning who never dated any men and who focus on their career. Okay, so, or they dated very few men. She said they never wanted kids, but because it was never presented as an option to them, or because it would interfere with their lesbian identity. All right. Now, career lesbians who were in the U.S. military, she said they used to say that you could spot them based on their ambition. Again, these are not my original thoughts. I'm just sharing with you this information because it's honestly stuff I did not know, and all of this is coming from Sue B, who I'm going to introduce to you tomorrow. Okay. Anyway, so she said that there were lesbians. She said like her, who due to survivor issues of having been abused, of course, and due to the fact that they wanted children, they went ahead and they married a man. Now, I imagine this is more common than any of us even realized. So, it is what it is. But with that being said, you know, she has been in this position where she has been forced to be sort of in the closet at one point. Okay. Now, what's interesting to this, when we're speaking to this, is that, she said this thing earlier that I thought was hilarious. She said that, and it's not hilarious at all, but it was so funny and kind of insightful, and a way that she was able to sort of laugh at herself, I think. And she said, I've been married to a man and a woman, and they're both narcissists. So I can't remember how she put it, but it was something. I'll tell you in a minute. My computer's freezing up as I'm trying to record this video, of course, because that would make my life too easy, wouldn't it? One moment. Okay, well, hopefully I'm not going to get completely off track here, but I have now got a clean copy in front of me, so that shouldn't happen again. Okay? All right, so she said there are lesbians, I already said this, but there are lesbians out there right from the beginning who never dated men and chose to focus on their career instead, or they dated very few. And she said they never wanted kids because it was not presented as an option, but then she added, or it would interfere with their lesbian identity. And then she says, and I already told you about the career lesbians. Okay, so then she says, then there are lesbians like her who, due to survivor issues and wanting kids, she married a man. She said, I have met a lot of women who are similar who could not come out until they felt safe. She said, being a lesbian or queer, she said, not my word, makes you always have a vulnerability. She says that in some cases, a secret, you're a secret because, or you have a secret because you're not the norm, but also because you never know when someone is going to misquote the Bible to you while they are trying to discriminate you. I have, again, because I have people in my family who are gay and lesbian, and because I have friends who are gay and lesbian, I feel really strongly about this, and I think that it's absolutely unacceptable to, in any way, harass someone or abuse someone because of their sexual orientation. And so, it's really important to me to bring this out to the public and to the awareness of everyone, because the fact is that there's probably a lot more, domestic abuse and narcissistic abuse, manipulation, etc., going on in gay and lesbian relationships than any of us realize, because we are not in a position to see them up close sometimes, those relationships, or because we don't recognize the patterns because maybe it's different for them, right? So this is what I found so interesting about what Sue said. She had so many really really strong things today, okay, to say. So anyway, she was going to explain to me, how this all looks from her side of things. She says, you know, um, discrimination takes many forms. She says, like your original family kicking you out when you're a teenager and you come out. She says that she knows all discrimination hits you either in poverty by taking away your resources, or in some cases, violence. And she said no one chooses to be gay. And we all know that, don't we? Because, I've said this repeatedly, and I've heard this from people who are gay and lesbian, and they've said to me, it would be so much easier to be straight. You know, why would I choose to be something that is causing me to be persecuted? And I absolutely 100% believe that. And I think that there have been studies that prove it. So I don't know why this is even up for debate anymore. If you're born that way, you're born that way. That's who you are. And so, you know, in some other world, in some other iteration, maybe my being straight would be weird. You know what I'm saying? And I can't become something I'm not. Why could I expect anyone else to become something they're not? That's outrageous and unacceptable in my opinion. And society is failing us there. All right? Anyway, some parts of society, I know that we have become, as a society, more accepting, but there are still, as we all know, people out there who don't understand and who choose to, protest too much, methinks. But anyway, we'll move on. All right. So, she says that as a result of all of this, being lesbian makes you, or gay makes you have a vulnerability. She says that, and in some cases, like I said, it's a secret. Okay. So she says queer culture has evolved in part because of this need to survive. She says career lesbians, a lot of them are very competitive. And she said that spills over into their relationships. And I guess that makes sense, because if we think about it, all of our personal qualities tend to spill over a little bit into our relationships, right? She says that, she says that dating then is very competitive for lesbians. And she says you can be rated on looks, on your career, on even how gay you look, or how femme, or how androgynous you look. she's saying this because it plays into the relationship, not because she's just putting it out there, right? She says if you're always under threat by a perceived threat, founded or unfounded, it changes the relationship by adding another level of complications, which makes abuse loves, which makes abuse love, and it's sort of abusers. They love that soil of the power dynamic, she says. Now, here's something interesting about that. I think that's just all across the board. I think everybody's got that in their situations, but I don't know why. I mean, when I first started talking about this stuff, I was like, well, in a relationship is this way, and I do obviously understand the basic dynamic of that, and even the more complicated dynamics. But since I haven't personally experienced a lesbian relationship, and I am not likely to in my lifetime, I am just so excited that Sue brought this to me because there's so much information here that I'm learning right with you guys, and I can't wait to bring her on and have her talk with you. Anyway, she says, in areas where discrimination is bad, you see more butch and femme roles. She says, but not in a good way. But in a way where you have someone who takes the worst version of male traits and takes them on. That's very interesting. She says all women are somewhere on a scale of masculine and feminine, and she said she has certain aunts in her life who looked like Mrs. Brown from Mrs. Brown's Boys. That must be a Canadian show because Sue's Canadian. I don't know that one. She said they looked more masculine than their husbands, and they didn't attach to women. Okay, so I get it. And they had no attraction. I think she meant to say, autocorrect. I'm reading from our conversation. She says that, and again, I'm reading this with permission, just so you know, I would never share anyone's private thoughts without their permission. So she says that, yeah, there, she just corrected attraction. She says if that happens naturally in a relationship, where, where one woman will take, or, one part of the same-sex couple will take a softer role and one takes a less softer role. She says it happens whether you're straight or gay, and I think that's true. She says, but if it becomes a role you're cast in because of what is being dictated to you, rules and expectations, etc., then controlling behavior comes along with it, right? That makes sense to me. She says when you're in a gay relationship, you have less resources, like the local minister who does, marriage and couples counseling. They generally won't obviously help a gay or lesbian couple, which is ridiculous because they're people. But some churches do still do accept and support people who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered. But I'm sure that there are fewer and far between than we realize, and I think that in some cases, individuals within those groups may be causing people to feel unwelcome. So, but isolation, she says, while you're going through all this stuff, is through the roof. She says you might not have family to go to because, of course, of being gay or lesbian, they sometimes have a higher risk of losing family as adults or as soon as they come out, unfortunately. And she says, and even the gay community, might be like, quit bitching, at least you have a partner. And she says, according to a lot of domestic violence shelters, women don't hurt other women, so they won't even help you. Okay? So even the people who are set up to help you won't help you because you're in a lesbian relationship? That's outrageous and unacceptable, people, don't you think? We've got to change this. All right. So she says, that. Well, let me move on to the next section because we kind of talked about nothing right there for a minute. All right. So then she has more for me. She says she wants us to understand how shame plays in this. She says it's magnifying the shame, which can be originally family based, or based on the fact that they weren't accepted at when they came out. And she says that shame for a lot of people causes them more problems with self-image, but it also places into their morality that as just makes a narcissist more narcissistic, and that doesn't change their morality, right? So what I think what she's saying here, and I think this goes across the board, but I think what she's saying in this case is that a lot of times with gays, in gay and lesbian situations, when there's a narcissistic abuser, she says, I think she's saying that the victim already has self-image problems because of the society that we live in, and the possibility of their family having rejected them and their friends having rejected them and all of this stuff when they came out. And she says that, of course, a narcissist, you know, is going to just become more narcissistic. And of course, a victim is going to become more of a victim in that situation. So she says where this plays up with flying monkeys, the people who do the narcissist bidding for them. She says, is if you have the more accepting family, they triangulate your family against you. See, this is interesting. She says, if you are the token queer, quote unquote, among your friends, then they also triangulate them too. And she says the narcissist will only admit their queerness if they are not holding it against you. Again, that is not my word, so please don't leave me comments saying mean things to me about using that word. I'm literally reading her conversation here. Okay. She said the somatic narcissist is they live being so queer looking, or they are not, or they are the best butch or femme. She said, like any culture, there tends to be a lot of interdating, and she said what she means by that is, for example, she knew a basketball team of lesbians, and everyone on the whole team had bed each other at some time or at some point in their life, like a small town where everyone has dated everyone else. I mean, that's not so weird. I'm sure that happens in a lot of different kinds of situations where people are, in situations where they're next to people that they might be sexually attracted to, regardless of their sexual orientation, and especially, depending on different age groups. Now, I can't speak to the sexual activity of the lesbian community personally, but I mean, this is right here, inside information, so I'm kind of excited that I can at least learn it with you. She says, and I just want to say again, this almost sounds like, well, and she just says it. She says dating tends to be at warped speed there, in the small town where everybody has dated someone else. And she says there's a joke about lesbians showing up with a U-Haul on the second date. She says, regarding, nesting, she says if the narcissist is in the process of coming out and she's still married, she might, kind of stay married for a while and keep her husband on a short string for financial support. She says that she met narcissist lesbians who always had a man around to use as a fake husband type role. And she said, sometimes the man would pick up the bills and mow the lawn. She says some narcissists or psychopaths or borderline personality disorders are not lesbians or bisexuals, but plain opportunist. And she says that, wow, that's very interesting. And she says, that she, wow, that's very interesting. I'm sorry. She says, that people will actually come into the gay and lesbian community and they will pretend to be lesbians or bisexuals in order to get something from these people. Narcissistic supply money, who knows, they're opportunists. Isn't that interesting? Some people have no shame, no couth, they're not people in so many ways because they'll just do whatever. They have no inner moral compass. And you know who those people are, don't you? Well, she just told us. Narcissists, psychopaths, borderline personality disorder. Yeah, those people. She says that for her, sex is better with a woman, but she has more power in a male-female relationship with that kind of attitude. That is amazing. Wow, and she did tell me so much. Oh, and then she said, this is interesting. She says, by the way, I define shame and guilt by the late John Bradshaw and the way he taught it, which was shame, I am shit, guilt, I do shit. I like that, Sue. That is really good stuff. Okay. And then let's see. Then she said, there's just one thing I need to add. She said, there can be used as much risk for violence with a lesbian partner. There can be as much risk for violence as, with a lesbian partner as there can be with a male partner, a heterosexual male partner. And Sue, I said this to you in our conversation, but I'm so grateful that she's giving us this information because I feel like we can truly bring, awareness to this particular part of the population that has not had it up to, in so many ways up to this point. I also hear from a lot of men that they do not have resources for domestic violence. And so I will also be doing a video on that in the near future. Because the fact is, you guys, that, being in a domestically abusive relationship is not only a thing that happens to straight women. Okay. Certainly, straight women are a large part of the domestic abuse population, but between the men who are being abused, heterosexual men who are being abused, and then you've got your gay men and your lesbian women, and then your transgender people and your bisexual people, you know. And then the curious, there's such a wide range of people, and so many of us are only focusing on heterosexual women. So look, I am a heterosexual woman, and I'm totally okay with it, but that's that's where it's at right now. So we are in this position right now where we can make a difference. So help me to to get this out here. Help Sue, who you're going to meet tomorrow, to get her message out there. We've got to tell the people. We've got to help these people to recognize this need and to not send women away who are being abused just because they're in a lesbian relationship from a freaking domestic violence shelter. Women do abuse women. And if you want me to say that women do abuse women, and it's not just in domestic violence relationships. We all know mothers abuse children. Those people are women mothers. And so I don't know why we're so shocked when we find out that there are lesbians who abuse each other. People abuse people sometimes. It has nothing to do with your sex or your culture or your race or how much money you have. Abuse goes across the scale, and I've said this before, across the spectrum. We're all at risk. And so if we don't stand up and make and listen and give voices to the people who need them, then we're failing. So, Sue, I'm so happy that you reached out to me. I'm so happy that you are, you know, that you're willing to talk with me, that you're willing to share all this information. I'm going to talk with Sue about blogging at Queen Being as well. I believe this population, the gay and lesbian and transgendered and bisexual population, is being underserved when it comes to abuse awareness, whether it's domestic abuse, domestic violence, emotional abuse, narcissistic abuse, all of this stuff, psychological, psychic, all of these things. These people are not getting a voice. So we're doing that. Now, Sue says a few more things I want to add for you today before I close up. She says, in a dangerous situation, like someone who, is anti-gay, when you're in that relationship, your narcissistic partner, lesbian partner, would throw you under the bus first. She says the same goes for threatening to out you. They will threaten to out you in order to scare you or hurt you if you're still in the closet, which a lot of, especially, women my age and a little younger and a little older are still in the closet because they wanted children, or because maybe they grew up in the Bible Belt or whatever. And she says, if you ever get a chance to speak to a domestic shelter, remind them that the same sex can be just as dangerous. You know what? I just want to say that right now, and I want you to hear me. If you're working in a domestic violence shelter, please understand that a same-sex relationship can be just as dangerous as a heterosexual relationship. And do not discount these people just because they're different from you. That's outrageous and unacceptable. We cannot do that as a society. We cannot just we cannot send people back into the arms of an abuser when they have opportunities to get out. We can't just take them, we have to give them the same resources we give everybody else. They're people. People. All right. All right. I am very excited. I am very excited. I've got so much more for you guys on this. And I totally believe that Sue was meant to reach out to me, and that I meant to work with her on this on all counts. So I hope that you're on my side on this, and then Sue's side, and I hope you agree with me that this is something that needs to come out. Now, I'm not going to stop doing my regular videos, but I'm going to add this series in because I think this is a series that needs to be done, and I think that this is something I care about because I care about people, and I don't like to see people who are not getting a voice when I can help them by using my voice for them. That's what I'm trying to do. So thank you so much for listening. I'm sorry that I went a little off topic today, but I think this is really kind of right in my spectrum of area of expertise, as it were, because I literally, this is what I do. I try to increase awareness about narcissistic abuse in relationships. And I want to add that I mean all relationships, you know, parent relationships, coworker relationships, gay relationships, lesbian relationships, heterosexual relationships, all the relationships. Everybody deserves to be feeling loved. Everybody deserves to feel safe in their home. Everybody deserves to come home to a place where they're not insulted and torn to shreds every single day. All right. That includes all of us, regardless of our age, regardless of our sex, regardless of our sexual orientation, regardless of how much money we make, regardless of the color of our skin, and regardless of where our address is. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is, as human beings, we have the right to go home to a place, to go to work to a place where we are not consistently and systematically destroyed on a psychological level, a physical level, an emotional level. Okay? That's what I have to say today. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you guys so much. Hugs and love.